What if I told you that the modern internet has been influenced by Pokemon? I know it sounds crazy, but upon further investigation, it's not as far-fetched of a concept as it seems. The internet contains endless wikis and categorizations mirroring the structure of Pokemon, where everything is classified, detailed, and cataloged. This mass categorization phenomenon of the internet has essentially turned everything into Pokemon, and the term I like to use for this phenomenon is Pokemonification. What do you think of when you think of the internet? An endless variety of content and information, viral trends and fads, the everlasting evolution of technology, social media, and the vast interconnectivity it brings? Regardless of whether you use the internet for work or to sit down and watch cat videos, the internet is incredibly unique in the fact that we're still in the first generation of users. While people of all ages access and use the internet, only a few generations have grown up with this technology. The memes of your grandma struggling to use the computer exist because the computer and internet just do not come naturally to that generation. In contrast, the digital natives, particularly latter millennials, Gen Z, and Gen Alpha, are the architects of internet culture. These generations have grown up with the internet as a part of their daily lives, allowing influence that no previous generation has had an opportunity for. Take the automobile, for example. There's already over a century of work done to understand, improve, and optimize it. Over the years, the automobile has had countless innovations, improving driver safety, performance, navigation systems, and has completely transformed daily life. There have been several generations of engineers and designers that have contributed to the development of the automobile. Just as early automobile industry saw rapid innovation and changes, we're living through the internet's version of the Model T to Tesla transformation. We can also see this phenomenon with computers. The first ever computers took up entire rooms. They were extremely expensive and very limited in their capabilities. Your smartwatch has more RAM than those early computers that occupied entire office spaces. As a specific technology matures, it gets faster, better, and more efficient with each iteration, like a fine wine or whiskey aging over time. The internet has only been widely available for a few decades. In the lifespan of the internet, we're still in the very early stages. The first iterations of the internet did not even have HTTPS, meaning that everything you did online was easily intercepted and viewed by anyone on your network. We really are living through the foundational stages of something much larger, an ever-expanding digital universe. As the digital natives are driving much of the internet culture and trends we see today, as it continues to evolve, the influence will continue to grow. Whether you're a fan or not, Pokemon is undeniably a cultural cornerstone. In case you're watching this video and unaware, Pokemon translates to pocket monsters in Japanese. The core concept is collecting all these pocket monsters known as Pokemon, each one with a unique type, attack, and abilities. And when collecting Pokemon, you build out a Pokédex, which is a subsystem rich in information about each and every Pokemon. Pokemon is a beloved franchise of video games, TV shows, movies, trading cards, and merchandise. Everyone remembers the Pokemon Go craze in 2016, and plenty of memes are based on Pokemon. It has been around for decades and has remained relevant for as long as the internet has existed. Black and White are the best Pokemon games ever created. Don't at me. But Pokemon's influence goes far beyond pop culture. The financial dominance of the IP is staggering. Pokemon is the single most valuable IP on the planet at $98.9 billion of valuation. That beats out second place Mickey Mouse and Friends by nearly $40 billion. For reference, the MCU is worth $33.8 billion, and Star Wars is worth $46.7 billion, which means that Marvel and Star Wars combined are still not even worth as much as Pokemon. Despite the recent games being heavily criticized, Pokemon is effectively a money printing machine due to its sustained popularity. Also, about 3% of their revenue comes from jet aircraft livery sales. Yeah, like somehow there's a whole fleet of commercial jets that are wrapped in Pokemon imagery. The flight crew and interior of the jet are also completely themed to Pokemon. There are still 12 Pokemon jets flying to this day in Japan. That's certainly not a typical revenue stream, but it's definitely a testament of how far-reaching the brand is. Through the mainline games, TV shows, movies, and trading cards, Pokemon has captured the hearts of fans across generations. Pokemon has constantly reinvented itself, adapting to new trends, media formats, and game consoles, all while maintaining the essence of what makes it so special. Shifting gears for a moment, one corner of the internet that I really enjoy is the growing internet aesthetics phenomenon. These are visual art style or design trend that are often represented by fashion, subculture, and pieces of media. The internet collectively has created hundreds of aesthetics covering a wide array of almost anything you can imagine. The most popular aesthetic is Frutiger Arrow, characterized by Frutiger font, skeuomorphism, glossy textures, cloudy skies, tropical fish, water, bubbles, glass, lens flare, and sprawling patterns. It's a nostalgic look back into the early 2000s when graphic design was still willing to take risks. Another interesting aesthetic is Dreamcore, a surrealist style that often gives a dreamy or otherworldly appearance. It can express feelings of familiarity, anemoia, nostalgia, or confusion. Dreamcore visuals are often lighter pastel tones, but there's always just something that feels a little off. Popularized by TikTok was dark academia, an aesthetic inspired by upper-class European cultures in the 19th century. It is characterized by dark earth tones, literature, gothic architecture, and invokes feelings of intellectualism in a more somber and romanticized era. Other notable aesthetics include Vaporwave with its retro-futuristic visuals and glitch art, and Cottagecore, which portrays simple rural and pastoral life. These aesthetics represent a tiny fraction of what's available. The Fandom Aesthetics Wiki alone has nearly 1,000 individual aesthetics to explore, and it's surprisingly easy to waste an evening exploring the site and the nuances to each aesthetic that catches your eye. I know what you're thinking. Matt, what does any of this have to do with Pokemon? And to that, I would say good question. But where it does get interesting, the Aesthetics Wiki, and by extension, any internet wiki really, is effectively a Pokédex for anything worthwhile being categorized online. Any niche subtopic likely has its own subreddit or dedicated fanbase. The internet is really set up like a collection of Pokédexes for virtually any subject. Since Frutiger Arrow has essentially become the mascot of internet aesthetics, one could even say that Frutiger Arrow is the Pikachu of internet aesthetics. It's like one of those analogies. Pikachu is to Pokemon as Frutiger Arrow is to internet aesthetics. And this goes far beyond aesthetics. While you have the Aesthetics Wiki and their corresponding subreddit, there's also Wikipedia for anything Star Wars, the Ice Hockey Wiki, even Logopedia for logos, and of course you got Wikipedia with an article present for, like anything in existence. Curiously, the most prominent Pokemon wiki is Bulbapedia, and it's not named, Now, considering how much influence younger generations have on the internet, it's not a stretch to say that the internet's substructure has been heavily shaped by the franchise that these generations hold near and dear. The impact Pokemon has had on how we categorize and organize information on the internet is undeniable. So why is this? Why is everything on the internet being turned into Pokemon? Or, I guess, rather, being mass categorized? As humans, we seek patterns, organization, and control. Cognitive psychologist Gregory Murphy states, "We put an awful lot of time into trying to figure out and convince others of just what kind of person someone is, what kind of action something was, and what kind of object something is." This effort to categorize helps us make sense of the complexities of daily life. Once we figure out the category of something, we think we know all the answers about it, as logic is applied universally from everyday objects to abstract concepts and even people. For example, we can apply the same logic to Pokemon. If a Pokemon is fire type, we immediately know that it is weak to water and strong against grass. The categorization helps a player quickly understand and strategize without needing to memorize every individual Pokemon's characteristics. Similarly, if we know something is Frutiger Arrow, we associate it with glossy textures, Frutiger font, and elements of nature. The aesthetic categorization allows us to predict and recognize the style in various contexts. Consider the Star Wars universe. If a character is a Sith, we assume that they are the bad guys, whereas Jedi are seen as the good guys. This helps us navigate the narrative of the storyline with clear expectations of character roles and alignments. Even in real life, if someone is described as an academic, you likely consider them knowledgeable, perhaps reserved, and likely spends a lot of time reading literature. Maybe their house even has, a dark academia aesthetic. The categorization simplifies our social interactions and understanding. The desire to categorize extends to the internet in pursuit to help navigate an overwhelming amount of information. For instance, Vaporwave or dark academia serve as shortcuts to understand and appreciate a vast array of internet cultural artifacts. Once we have these clear-cut categories, it seems that we have all the answers to our questions. This includes the proliferation of wikis. Wikis act as digital Pokédexes, organizing and cataloging vast amounts of information into easily digestible categories. Whether it's the aesthetics wiki for visual styles, Wikipedia for Star Wars lore, or Bulbapedia for Pokemon details, platforms all fulfill the desire for structured categories. While the mass categorization of the internet is surely a helpful and digestible tool, it is not exempt of drawbacks. Our reliance on categories can reinforce cognitive biases. Humans naturally seek patterns and order, which can lead to stereotyping and snap judgments based on superficial characteristics. By categorizing people, ideas, or art forms too rigidly, we might reinforce existing biases and limit our understanding of the internet and culture. For example, assuming that all elements of an aesthetic like vaporwave are inherently nostalgic or retro can prevent us from appreciating the modern and forward-thinking adaptations. Ultimately, this can stifle creativity and innovation as new interpretations can be overlooked or dismissed. The mass categorization of the internet is also often rather arbitrary. It can be hard to draw the line between Frutiger Arrow and Frutiger Aurora. These distinctions can feel forced, blurring the lines of what makes each category unique. This approach can lead to a kind of aesthetic fatigue where the endless subcategories become overwhelming and lose their meaning. With the simplification of complex concepts into rigid categories, it begins to lose the diversity that makes each thing interesting. These critiques are not exclusively for internet aesthetics, but I feel it's the easiest comparison to make, and can easily be applied across almost any internet subculture. There's no doubt that the structure of Pokemon has influenced the subculture and structure of the internet. The Pokemon-inspired mass online categorization helps make sense of the vast reach of the internet, but at the same time, it's important to remain aware of the limitations of this. While categorization is important and allows for much easier interpretation, sometimes you just gotta take the whole process with a grain of salt and recognize the limits of what categorization, or the Pokemonification, can tell you. Thank you so much for watching, and be sure to like and subscribe for more of my content.